compass rose. The voice cut into my panic. I turned, briefly noticing the long table covered with maps before I saw the woman leaning against the end of it. Her toned, bared arms were crossed over her chest, and a thick, dark braid hung over one shoulder, gleaming warmly in the firelight. My mouth went a little drier. I knew her eyes were blue before I met them, and the sudden chill that shook my body had nothing to do with my lengthy bout of seasickness. "Welcome aboard," she said. I didn't need an introduction. This was Miranda. I could tell by the reverent looks on the faces of Orca and Kraken, and by the dangerous heat that radiated from the woman, like the light from the lamps above her. She nodded at Orca, who undid my wrists with significantly more courtesy than she'd previously shown me. I rubbed the mark with a cord had cut into my skin and tried to calm my rapid heartbeat as I stole another glance at the mercenary captain. She couldn't have been that much older than me, mid-20s maybe, and I thought 25 was pushing it. Her blue eyes met mine with all the unexpected force of a rogue wave. My breath caught, and for a split second I was back on the Parley vessel, plunging down into the trough of a passing swell with the ocean opening beneath me. North, east, south, west. I clung to my cardinal point and tried not to drown. "Rough seas?" Miranda asked, holding out her hand. I reached for it, still reeling. Her grip was firm and warm, and I felt an unusual callus on her palm as she withdrew, almost like a scar. "Nothing Annie couldn't handle." Orca's voice held none of its earlier contempt. It was almost pleasant. Gave Rose here a little upset, though. Miranda raised an eyebrow. "We prefer to avoid waves where I'm from," I said. "No surprise there," said Orca under her breath. "You'll adapt." Miranda's words held no room for alternatives. She reached below the table and pulled out a flagon of what looked alarmingly like rum. My stomach flopped. More rum was the last thing I needed after a sail like that. I was in the process of preparing a polite refusal when Miranda laid a slender knife and a clean bandage by the bottle. I traced the blade with my eyes. It was old, and carved from the bone of some ancient sea creature, with a blade that had been honed so often that it was barely more than a sliver. "So," Miranda said, running a finger along the blade, "this is a rare opportunity. The Polarian fleet's most promising navigator aboard a mercenary vessel." I saw Orca smirk out of the corner of my eye. "I run a tight ship. It might not look like much to you, but we follow a code, and with that code comes rules. You, however, pose an interesting dilemma. I have a deal with your captain, but deals at sea are rarely weathertight. If you are going to serve on my ship, then you and I need to come to an agreement." "Admiral Kamita," I began, but Miranda cut me off. "Admiral Kamita is a long ways away. I need your word, not your admiral's." I looked at the blade on the table again, wondering what would happen if I refused. Kamita had bid me to do whatever Miranda ordered, no matter how strange it might seem to me. "What kind of agreement did you have in mind?" I asked. She unstoppered the rum bottle and let 2 drops run down either side of the knife blade. I watched them drip off the tip and onto the stained wood table. In the silence, I heard them hit the surface with a faint plop that sounded disturbingly like dripping blood. Kamita better make me second mate for this when I get back, I thought. This is how we seal the contract. Miranda placed her right hand on the table next to mine, palm up. A curious scar marked the surface, interrupting what Cassiopeia's fortune-tellers called the lifeline, the heartline, and the headline. I tried not to dwell on the superstitious significance as I looked at my own smooth palm, and back to Miranda's, then to the knife. There was no mercy in Miranda's eyes. "Give me your hand," she said. In the light of the burning lamps, I noticed a thin tracery of more scars covering her face. They stood out from her suntanned skin in ghostly lines and continued down her neck. I looked at her hands and her bare arms and saw the faint scars there, too. I knew better than to ask. Instead, I stuck out my right hand and tried not to tremble. My little finger quaked traitorously. When she offered me a drink of the rum, I took a long swig. "This mark will protect you on this ship," she told me as she picked up the blade. The unspoken words echoed in my head. Protect me, maybe, but I'd heard enough stories about pirates and mercenaries to know the mark was more than a gesture of protection. It was a brand. So, that is today's reading. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.